It's that time of year. Cannell had a good tweet. I'm going to read it for you. I'm going to react. He said, and I quote, "College football is losing its best coaches because there is zero structure. It's impossible to manage rosters, keep players from bolting, or have any say in who to pay, and still have to worry about the NCAA? It's a joke, and if it doesn't get fixed soon, more will make the same jump." Now, I think Daniel here was maybe a little bit in above his skis, but not totally, because I don't think Jim Harbaugh left college football because of the structure of college football. At least I don't think he did. He's probably not in love with it, but I don't think he did. Nick Saban may very well have. And if he didn't totally, I think the structure and direction of college football may have hit the fast forward button on when he hit the exit door. So you may listen to that and say, big deal. We got a million folks out there who'd love to coach. I saw Andy Staples reply to Cannell, and he said, "Hey, man, I'd be happy to take on that list of headaches for $9 million a year." This is no disrespect to Staples. His talents are better served over here on our side of the fence. So I don't want to be losing him to a coaching job. But in general, when people say that, my reply is, well, of course you'd take it. But you're not getting offered the jobs. And by the way, like I candidly, I'd love to get shot into orbit. I'd volunteer for the risk associated with going up into space anytime. NASA is not offering me a seat on the shuttle, because I'm really not qualified to have it. And so the folks who are qualified to hold these jobs are few and far between to begin with. But when people make the point Cannell's making, I cannot believe I'm going to say this either. When people make points like Cannell and I are making, Danny and I, sounds like a show Tony Danza should have started in the 80s. Anyway, when people make these points, they're not saying we're going to run out of head coaches. You'll always have head coaches. You're running out of the best. You risk running out of the best. You risk running off the best. Now, this has not hit the sport between the eyes yet. Okay? I am actually a believer that the sport is running the risk right now of losing some of its best prematurely because it's a mess behind the scenes. I believe that because they've told me that to my face. But the sport and the college football public has not been punched between the eyes with that reality yet because it hasn't happened. You haven't watched a head coach in the prime of his career step away from the sport and say, "Oh, no, I'm not going to the NFL. Oh, no, I didn't get fired. College football's not for me anymore. This is not the game that I recognize anymore." And that hasn't happened, but it doesn't mean it couldn't happen. So normally when you ask coaches behind the scenes, even the ones who were open with you about how they're feeling, "Hey, how many more years are you going to do this?" Look, even the ones who are 5 minutes from retirement normally tell you, "Oh, I got 10 years left." Nick Saban, man, I was within earshot, shall we say, very recently when he alluded to the fact that I still got a lot of tread left on the tires. They never let you know it's coming. So when I tell you what I'm about to tell you, you need to understand this is not normal. There are coaches by the dozens who will tell you right now, off the record to your face, "I'm just about out of here. I got maybe 1, maybe 2 more years. If this stuff doesn't change, I'm willing to give it time. But if this stuff doesn't change, I'm out of here." Not worth it for any amount of money. And normally the ones saying that are already financially secure. And so they don't have to work. They don't need it. They can survive 10 lifetimes with what they've accumulated financially. But they love football, and ideally they wouldn't step away from it. But that's coming. And I'm not talking about a Nick Saban. Like, all due respect to him, I think he's the greatest of all time. He was also in his early 70s. I want you to picture someone in their early 50s on top of the college football world stepping away. And stepping away as they step to a podium and say, "I am in good health. I am not taking another job. I just can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." And then what's your headline? Is your headline, "No one's crying for him, next up, next man up"? Or is it going to be, "Is this really where we want the sport to be right now? This is a disaster"? Think about all the 3 letters out there. Like, think about NFL, MLB, WWE, UFC. I don't care which direction you go. NBA, like all the leagues. When I say those letters, you don't just think about the sport. You think about an entity. NFL, I think about Roger Goodell. I think about team owners. Like MLB, I've got a commissioner. I've got a commissioner in the NBA. I have got centralized leadership. I've got guardrails. I've got guidelines. I've got calendars that make sense. CFB doesn't mean anything, guys. CFB stands for college football, and that's a sport, but there's no organization called CFB. You got an organization called CFP, and they got their own agenda. You got an organization called the NCAA, and Lord knows what they're doing day to day, or if they even came to the office today. What is CFB? CFB's got to mean something in the future, or you're going to be SOL on a lot of what you want the sport to be. Jesse, I didn't focus group that statement. I'm so happy with it, though. Oh, I'm so happy with that. My point, as it sounds a little doom and gloomy, is like I told you guys the week of the national title game, and I've said it a few times, and I'll say it again. I think a lot of people are motivated to get this right, but it can't happen overnight. I do think it's going to happen quicker than you would expect college football to move at, but I don't think we're there yet. What I hope is we don't lose good coaches in the interim. Like a prediction for you. I think within the next couple of years, a major head coach at or near the top of his game and the top of his profession is going to step away from college football, perfect health, not going to the NFL. He just steps away voluntarily and he says, I'm stepping away because I don't like college football right now. And then he waits. He goes and sits in a studio, or maybe he goes and sits on his back porch and fades a little bit and just waits. And then you fast forward 5 years and maybe college football rights itself. And then the following headline is written in 2028. Coach X ready to get back in the game. Could you imagine how big a mess your sport has to be when some of your best are contemplating temporary retirement? I'm going to go sit in the pits over here. I'm going to go sit on the sidelines. Do you guys get the sport figured out? How pathetic is that? You could either call them soft, which I promise you they aren't, or you could call your sport really, really messed up. I would never betray confidence on this stuff in a million years. I'm telling you point blank, there are some big name head coaches in college football that are about that close to either outright calling it quits and calling it a career or saying, I'm done with this for now. Promise you, you'd be shocked at some of the names that are way closer to the exit door of this sport than you think they are.